Divers uncover the most important archaeological artifact of the century. The city of Casais is a vacationer's dream. Located on Portugal's coast and just west of Lisbon, the city boasts casinos, sandy beaches, scenic seaside cliffs, and natural parks filled with brilliant sand dunes. But Casais is more than just a luxurious travel destination. In 2018, researchers spotted an anomaly in the results of geophysical surveys taken just off the coast. Officials and scholars launched an investigation into the curious spot and uncovered what many have called one of the most important archaeological finds of the last century. During the Age of Exploration, Portugal expanded its relatively small nation by conquering several territories overseas. With colonies in South America, Africa, and Asia, trade provided the country with spices, foreign artworks, and more. With help from the Portuguese government, researchers at Nova University in Lisbon spent years studying this era of the country's history. In September of 2018, they made quite a breakthrough in the tiny town of Casais. Aside from its sunny and sandy beaches, this town is also a popular spot for boaters due to its spacious marina located right in one of the town's most popular areas. It also has a rich history. Its marina may be filled with yachts and personal sailboats now, but it used to welcome a different kind of fleet. The area, which is currently flooded with tourists and upper-class Portuguese travelers, was once filled with adventurers. During the 16th century, Casais was a crucial spot for Portuguese trade ships. The Tagus is the main river flowing through Portugal, so ships traveled it to reach the ocean. Luís Mendes, Portugal's Minister of Culture, said the Tagus River was considered a hotspot for trade in the era of wooden ships. But that didn't mean it was safe. The river's filled with large rocks, making it a dangerous route. And when archaeologists made an astounding discovery just off the coast in September of 2018, Mendes said it proved how crucial the Tagus was to the history of Portugal. The archaeologist project director and maritime expert agreed with Mendes. From a heritage perspective, Jorge Freire said this is the discovery of the decade. So what did they find? Freire and his crew found a 400-year-old shipwreck. We found the ship using a geophysical survey and divers, he said, and spent 4 days working on the site. And this wreck was special. It was remarkably well preserved, and so were some of the items found on the ship. Among several little treasures was a fragment of Chinese pottery from the Wanli period in the Ming Dynasty, which was incredibly helpful in dating the ship. Zhu Yizhen was the Wanli Emperor, the 14th emperor of the Ming Dynasty. He reigned for 48 years starting in 1572, which meant this ship landed at the bottom of the river around that time, at the end of the 16th century or start of the 17th. That particular period was the height of the spice trade for Portugal, so it came as no surprise when archaeologists also discovered black pepper, a commodity so valuable at the time that it was often used as collateral or even currency. However, this wasn't the only alternative currency on board. Sadly, the wreck also contained several cowrie shells from a type of sea snail. Cowrie shells come with a dark past, as they're often used as currency in the slave trade in many parts of Africa. What that tells us is the ship visited several continents all in one trip, but not without risk. The last and largest items found in the river were several bronze cannons. A ship carrying such valuable goods was at risk for piracy and other looters, so the cannons served as protection against unfriendly ships, assuring the goods would make it back to Portugal safely. The cannons were engraved with Portugal's coat of arms, which is still found on the Portuguese flag. This cemented the discovery as an important cultural relic for the coastal nation, and that was how the wreck was treated. This is one of the most significant archaeological discoveries of the century, said Casais Mayor Carlos Carreras. The recognition from the scientific community that this is the discovery of the decade, the century, in terms of marine archaeology is for us of great satisfaction. Well-skilled archaeological divers quickly removed parts of the wreckage that were at risk. The rest of the wreckage will remain in the river indefinitely for experts to explore. This unnamed trade ship is not the first wreckage to be found in the Tagus River. Nearly a century older, another ship sank in 1606 when it was trying to seek safer anchorage in the Tagus during a windstorm. Unfortunately for those on board, it didn't end well. It struck a submerged rock and went down close to the shore. Lost in the wreck was a massive amount of black pepper, which completely covered the river, to the delight of the people who lived on the river, who eagerly scavenged what they could find. This ship, which researchers discovered, was called the Nossa Senhora dos Martires, was first detected in 1993 and excavated between 1996 and 2001. If a ship in such a broken state could be identified, there was a great chance this new ship could be identified too. The recent finding of the Kasay shipwreck is attracting even more tourism. So the government has displayed some of the divers' photos at the Santo Antonio Fort in São João de Ostrero. Who wouldn't be curious about such a grand historical find? The Swedish Ocean X diving team, led by Peter Inberg and Dennis Osberg, hoped to uncover a little history of their own while treasure hunting 300 feet from the surface of the northern Baltic Sea. The water was freezing, dark, and difficult to navigate. They were trying to find the remnants of an old shipwreck, so they were keeping an eye out for anything oddly shaped and weirdly colored. It was slow, quiet work on the seafloor until the eerie silence was punctuated by a beep. The beeping came from their sonar equipment, which seconds before had shown only murky blackness. Now, however, its screen was covered with a mysterious sight: a tall mountainous structure surrounded by rock. This turned out to be a canyon made of stones, sand, and molten rock. But what really caught their eye wasn't at the bottom of the deep, dark cavern. Instead, it was just a couple feet nearby. "We were really surprised and puzzled," Dennis said of the new discovery. "We were thinking, this is not a wreck." It was easy to verify Dennis's theory that their new discovery wasn't a shipwreck, but its true identity was more difficult to figure out. If you're an explorer worth your salt, you don't immediately jump to extraterrestrial conclusions as soon as you see something unusual. Peter and Dennis then were quick to bounce around some logical explanations for the object. First, they thought that it was some kind of submarine left over from World War II, or perhaps an old battleship gun turret. But each time they referred back to the blurry sonar image, they couldn't shake the feeling that it was something else entirely. The object was a circle, about 200 feet in diameter, with odd rivets and cracks across its tops. The image they captured was so grainy, however, that it was difficult to see much else. So they returned a year later, but this time with backup. "It could be something really awesome that we found," Dennis said, and he hoped that backup in the form of more advanced equipment would answer the biggest question about the object: what the heck it even was. But they immediately encountered an issue. The problem wasn't the clarity of the image, but the equipment itself. It just wouldn't take a photo. According to the explorers, every time the cameras got close to the object, they would cut out completely. Stefan Hogerborn, a professional diver with Ocean X, was baffled by the malfunctions. "Anything electric out there stopped working when we were above the object," he claimed. Though the team was at a loss, one group of people quickly came to the rescue. See, the sonar of the structure had leaked online, despite Peter and Dennis's claim that they wished to keep it totally quiet. It wasn't long before the internet took in the object's rivets and cracks and arrived at a sound conclusion. "Yeah, definitely the Millennium Falcon," one person commented on a news story about the discovery. It's true that the object's appearance looked strikingly similar to Han Solo's beloved spaceship, but could it really be an object from outer space? What really piqued the interest of the explorers wasn't the size or shape of the object, but what it appeared to be made of: metal. After all, why would a 200-foot object made of metal be chilling on the ocean floor? The theory that the object was actually metal and not a rock formation only intensified the spaceship rumors. So in order to ease the public and their own nagging curiosity, Peter and Dennis opened the mystery up to experts, and the experts had thoughts. Scientist Charlie Paul said the original grainy image was sediment dropping from a fishing trawler, a school of fish, or even something as simple as a pile of rocks. The spaceship theory, he claimed, is curious and fun, but much ado about nothing. Another scientist, Goran Ekberg, agreed that the finding looks weird since it's completely circular, but nature has produced stranger things than that. The most incinerating claim, however, came from an actual expert on extraterrestrial life. Doubtful of Peter and Dennis's motives, Jonathan Hill of Mars Space Flight Facility said, "Whenever people make extraordinary claims, it's always a good idea to consider whether they're personally benefiting from the claim." Still, Peter and Dennis had at least a little support. Geologist Steve Weiner claimed that, according to his own tests, the structure was not a geological foundation. He was even quoted supporting one of the most outlandish claims. The object, Steve claimed, was made of metals which nature could not reproduce itself. Peter hoped this kind of support from Steve would solve the mystery of the sunken ship and help his team go further than ever before with their research. In 2019, Peter suggested that Ocean X may return to the object with an entire camera crew in tow. With a TV series, Peter hoped more light would be shed on the object's identity. As for now, at least they're sure about one thing. There's something we do not usually find in nature, sitting in the depths of the Baltic Sea, Peter concluded. Whether or not this is true is still anyone's guess, but as any good explorer knows, the mystery is the best part of the expedition.